Hey everybody, it's Stuart here from Bits of Chips and welcome back to my journey into profitable poker. So the time is finally upon me. I've gathered sufficient information and knowledge to begin looking at and building my strategy. Over the next several weeks, I'm going to be looking at building ranges in each position for my preflop strategy. Each week, there will be 3 videos comprising of theory, gameplay and off-the-felt analysis. This week, I'm going to be looking at open raising from the end of the gun position. As mentioned in an earlier video, I'm going to be using Peter Clark's book, The Grinder's Manual, along with Sky Matsuyashi's book, How to Study Poker. With these 2 books, along with various blog posts and YouTube videos, I'm going to be building my strategies. So without further ado, let's get into it.
The end of the gun position, or UTG, is the first playing position in any Texas Hold'em game, and is always the hardest position to play from because of this. But playing a strong tight range will help maximise my expected value from this position. But before I start looking at any opening ranges, I first need to look as to why I am opening from this position. Understanding why you're taking a particular action is key in creating a strategy. Don't just blindly carry out moves without first understanding why. Also, I need to look at my opening raise from this position, but I'll cover the actual raise after we look as to why we are opening, as it will make more sense. The one thing I do not want to do is limp. This means just calling a big blind. This is a very bad idea for 3 reasons. You want to ensure that you get maximum value from your playable holdings by building the pot pre-flop. If you limp your stronger holdings, you incentivize other players to see a cheap flop. This will reduce your equity of your hand. For example, in a pot with 5 other opponents, each playing with a range of 20%, a player with aces in the UTG is expected to lose nearly 48% of the time. You will also invite other players on later positions to isolate raise against you, but I will cover isolation raises in a later video. So let's take a look at some reasons as to why to open from the UTG. 1. For value, to build a pot with strong hands which have good odds of making a hand on the flop versus our opponent's ranges. We mainly favour hands with good pair flopping quality for this. 2. To thin the field. Most of the hands from this position are strong enough that their primary aim post-flop is to win a sizable pot. Hands like top pair and over pairs. Addition to that, a slightly less primary aim is to take down the pot post-flop with a continuation bet. In favourable situations such as heads up, raising before the flop cuts down the number of players seeing the flop, increasing your equity and increasing your chances of winning the pot. 3. To sometimes win the blinds. Raising from this position won't bag you the blinds as much as from the button, but this doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. There will be times when everyone just folds and you win the pot. Let's take a look at some calculations to prove why it's possible to win the blinds from the UTG. Okay, so a simple calculation we can use to determine how much combined probability of folding we have on the table. To find the combined probability of both X and Y occurring, we multiply the individual probability of X occurring by the individual probability of Y occurring. If there are 3 or more events to calculate, we simply add more individual probabilities to the equation. Let's take a quick look at an example. There are 5 players left, so we want to know the probability of all 5 folding. Let's say their VPIP is 13% on average. That means they fold 87% of the time. So the formula is P equals 0.87 per player. And as we can see, there are 5 players. This gives us a combined probability of 0.498. Now if we multiply this by 100, it gives us 49.8%. So as we can see, we have nearly 50% chance of all players folding, so the hero should avoid temptation to get too out of line. 4. To target weaker players. Sometimes you can expand your range in the UTG to target weaker players, particularly the ones in the blinds who are playing too many hands pre-flop. An advantage is you always have position on them post-flop. When the competition is weaker, I can expect to profit by getting into more post-flop scenarios than usual, because there is a greater chance the weaker player will fold to a continuation bet. Now let's take a look at the ranges I'll be opening from the UTG position. I will have 2 ranges here, a default range and a dynamic range. The first range is for the standard play, against most opponents. The second range is for playing against opponents that are too loose and too tight. This may sound strange to treat them the same, but the reasons are very different. Going back to my video on player types, I said that passive players will tend to call down even with bottom pair, or play fit or fold post-flop. So even with second best pair on the table, I can raise against these players and expect to be paid off by them a significant amount of time. Also using my dynamic range against very knitted players as they fold too often, we can widen our range so we can steal a lot more. So this is my default opening range in the UTG position. It's a total of 11% of top hands. This is an extraction from Flopzilla. And as you can see, we can expect this range to hit the flop nearly 42% of the time. Our default opening range comprises of pairs, suited high cards that can pair the board strongly, and a few suited connectors. This range, along with all ranges created, will be in line with Peter Clarke's suggestions, which is by picking every hand that will normally be plus EV to open with 100 big blind stacks, and not by which hands will be performed best when they are on all-in pre-flop. This is the dynamic range. Opening with this range on the UTG is a little reckless for a new player, unless there are specific reasons why. We have briefly gone over them, which we're opening against passive players and very little opponents. Opening with this range against a passive player in the blinds will allow you to be in position post-flop. Most will call. The tighter passive players tend to play fit or fold, so if they miss the flop, they will generally fold to any bet. Nitty players in the blind will tend to have a VPIP of no more than 14%, so that means they are folding 86% of the time, so widening our range against these players will increase our plus EV plays. Bet sizing is an important aspect of any strategy. If you adjust your bet sizing based purely upon your hand strength, then your opponents can get a read upon you. This will allow them to split their ranges for you into strong and weak ranges. This allows the opponent to know when to fold when you have a stronger hand and re-raise you when you have a weaker hand. Raising with the same size every hand will stop your opponents knowing how strong your hand is. So opening with a 3x bet sizing from the UTG will comply with 2 of the 4 reasons to open from the UTG position in the first place, which is raising for value and to thin the field. Raising 4x and 5x is also okay if the table is very loose passive and there are more than one passive fish. Punish these players for playing too wide and not folding enough. There are situations where you can be on the table full of tight aggressive players. In this situation, you can reduce your bet size down to 2.5x. This makes it less costly to fold into 3 bets.
So that's the theory done for open raising from the UTG. I've looked at reasons why to open, what hands I should open with, and what ranges I should play based on a play type on the table. In the next video, I'll be implementing this theory into my play, so we can see whether the hands I have chosen are effective. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope you join me on the next one. And as always, if you want to find me, you can catch me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or you can just comment on the video below. And if you haven't already done so, please press the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.